All right, welcome back, everybody. So today we are going to continue on. This is the lesson 3 in our Fusion 360 tutorials. Last time we did a square, rectangle, and a circle with just some basic dimensioning. Now we're going to get into a little more complicated stuff. We're going to look at how you can make stuff equidistant. So if we wanted to make a triangle, like an isometric triangle where stuff lined up properly, a spline, pattern, fillet, mirror. Yeah, this is fillet, by the way, not fillet. Fillet has one L, fillet has two. Then we're going to do offset, rectangle by 1 inch, and the trim tool. So with that being said, this should finish up our two-dimensional modeling section. That should give us pretty much the basic tools you need to complete a lot of two-dimensional stuff. The things I really want to focus on are the rectangular pattern and circular pattern, because these come in handy a lot. For example, I had a student that wanted to make a hairbrush one year, and she made like 200 circles independently. But you could, and it took her like an hour, but you can do this in approximately 5 seconds with the pattern tools. So that's an important thing that I want to show you. So with that being said, let's get started. First thing we're going to make is a triangle with a 6-inch base and a 4-inch height from the bottom to the top point. So let's head over to Fusion. You'll see I'm in my, from our data panel here, I'm in my intro to Fusion with my name on it, my project, and then Fusion intro checklist. And then I have the 3 assignments that I did last time, a 3-inch square, 4x6 rectangle, and a 6-inch diameter circle. And I actually still have that up here. So I'm just going to get rid of these real quick. They're just like Chrome tabs, you can just close them. And remember, right now, when you first start a new file, you have all your 3D modeling tools up here, but we're going to stick to two-dimensional right now. So if you want to start a two-dimensional sketch, we're going to go to Create Sketch on the top left, and then we are going to pick any of these three-dimensional planes in the center of the screen. I'm just going to pick this one because it doesn't really matter. So our assignment was to make a triangle with a 6-inch base and a 4-inch height from the bottom to the top point. Now, I guess I should have specified, but I meant an isometric triangle, meaning that I want this to be, nice and symmetrical. I don't want any wonky triangles or anything like that. So this is going to use the line tool. I guess there's the polygon tool. Because a triangle is a type of polygon. It's just a polygon with 3 sides to it. Or you can also use the line tool. I guess I'll do both just to show you. But with the line tool, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on line. Then I'm going to click on my origin here. And then I'm just going to draw a very basic triangle. And you see how this snaps in place? That tells me I'm in line with where I first started. Now remember, you don't have to click and drag here. You just need to click once and let go. So click once, let go, move your mouse, click again, let go, move your mouse, click again, let go, move your mouse, click again on the final point here to save your, so this gets all completed, okay? So now, right now, can you see the problem with this? The problem is that this does not have any dimensions to it. The only constraint we have right now is that this bottom line, this symbol here, means that it's horizontally locked. So if I wanted to move this up and down, I actually can't because it's locked on this axis. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make it 6 inches wide. We need this base piece to be 6 inches, right? Yeah, 6 inches base. So we're going to go up to the top left and click on Sketch Dimension, the 2 lines with the arrows in between them. And then I'm going to click on the bottom of my rectangle here. I'm just going to click once and let go, and then move my mouse down, and then click again and let go. So this is going to add a dimension to the base of our triangle. Right now it's 1.68 blah, 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 blah inches long. We want to change this to 6 inches. So I'm just going to type in 6 and then press enter, and you'll see it gets a lot bigger. So we got a triangle right now, and our base width is 6 inches. Oh, by the way, if you want to change your units, if for whatever reason you're still in millimeters, you can go to Document Settings, hover over the units right here, and then click on Change Active Units. And then under Unit Type, if you're in millimeter, I think is the default. Just click inch and then set as default and then hit OK. All right, so now we want to set the height of our triangle. So the height of our triangle is supposed to be 4 inches high. So we're going to go over here. Now, this is where we're going to start dimensioning. Rather than just clicking on a line, we're going to click on 2 different pieces, and that's going to give us the distance between 2 reference points. So I'm going to click on the bottom of my triangle, and then I'm going to click on, you'll see when I hover around here, before I make my second click, right now this is just the width of this line. If I hover over here and select this line, it's going to give me an angle. We don't want that. Okay. Same thing's going to happen if I try to dimension from here to this line. That's going to give me an angle. We don't want that. We want the height. So I'm going to click on my bottom line, and then I'm going to hover over until, see how the top of the triangle turned into a point? That's what we want to dimension to. So I'm going to click on the top of my triangle and then move my mouse out. And now you'll see that the reference dimension from the bottom of the triangle to the top of the triangle, the top point, right now it's 7.2. We're going to change this to be 4. Okay, but we're still not done. Our triangle is 6 inches wide and 4 inches high, but right now it's not symmetrical. You can see this line is actually, the left line is actually longer than the right line. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is, this top point, we want it to be directly in the middle of our base line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension from, rather than picking a line here, I'm going to click on the bottom left corner of this triangle, this white point right here. And then I'm going to click on the top point of my triangle. And you'll see, depending on where I move my mouse, I move it around like this, it can give you a lot of different dimensions. It can give you the vertical height. It can also give you the length of this line. But what we want is we want their horizontal distance. So you can get that by moving either up high or down low, rather than to the left or to the right or diagonally. We want it, I'm just going to put it up high. So if I want this to be symmetrical, I want it to be half my bottom distance. Right now it's 3.2. That's why it's too long. So if I change this to 3, that gives us a perfectly symmetrical and isometric triangle. Okay. So that's it for this piece. So I'm going to finish sketch. I'm going to save as, and then I'm going to name this, we'll call it 6 by 4 inch triangle. And there we go. Now we got a new file in this folder. So on to the next task. Our next task is using Spline to make the shape from an imported image. Okay, so this one is a little more complicated. There's some steps involved, but this tool is really good. Let's say you want to make like a cup with a Bills logo on it or something. This would be really useful for that. So we're just going to practice the basic spline here first. So I'm just going to look up the Bills logo here, and I'm going to save image as, and then save that, and that'll go into my downloads on my computer. Now in Fusion, I'm going to go File, New Design, and then I'm just going to get rid of my triangle here. I'm going to start a new sketch, because right now we're in 3D mode. We want to go to 2D mode. We want to be in a 2D sketch. Now, if I want to trace that Bills logo, I'm going to press the Insert Canvas button right here. Okay, so if I press Insert, we're going to go Insert from my computer, Downloads, and the Buffalo Bills logo. And it's going to ask you what plane you want to put this on. So I'm just going to pick any random plane, and then press OK. So I've got the Bills logo, but you'll notice it's just floating in 3D space right here. I'm going to want to start a sketch on the same plane that the Bills logo is on. Okay, so now I'm in 2D sketch mode, and I have my Bills logo here. So if I want to trace this, I'm going to do a bad job just because I don't really need to get into all the details, but I can use the Spline tool right here. What Spline is, it's essentially a curly line or a wavy line, and we get it by clicking on the Spline tool, and then you specify your first point, and then basically you just trace along the path that you want to use. You just keep adding points. The more points you use, like the closer they are together, the more sharp your angle is going to be. So if you have a really tight curve, you might want to add more points to your spline. Or if you have a really wide section where you feel like the spline tool is wavering too much, then maybe have some less points. But right now, there's a bunch of stuff here, but you'll see if I hover over right here, this is actually the profile that I've just created. Obviously, I did a bad job. I want you, when you go to do this, to do a little bit better. Try to trace it as best as possible. And then you'll notice there were all these green things right here. These are called handles. And if your spline doesn't fit perfectly, you can click on these handles or anchors, and you can change the radius of this curve right here. So your task is going to be download an image, place it, and then use the spline tool to trace that image. And that's pretty much going to be it. But this is really, really useful if you want to try to copy a design, or you want to put a design on one of your products or something like that. Like I said, if you designed a cup and you want to put the Bills logo on it, this is one of the first steps for that. So that's it for the spline tool. We're going to finish our sketch. We're going to save it, and we're going to call it spline tool. There we go. Got it. All right, back to our checklist. So spline, done. Circular pattern is up next. Circular pattern is a great tool because it allows us to do a lot of work in a very short amount of time. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make one circle that patterns around a central point. So we're going to pattern a 2-inch circle 5 times from a point that's 5 inches away. So I'm going to go File, New Design. I'm going to close out my old one. I'm going to go to a 2D sketch. And then over here in a blank area, or I guess starting at the origin, I guess it doesn't really matter. First, I'm going to use my circle tool. I'm going to place a circle at the origin that's 2 inches in diameter. Okay. And then this is what we're going to pattern. So there's going to be 5 of these that revolve around a central point. So we need 2 things for patterns to work. We need our geometry, which is going to be our circle, and we need our point that it's going to revolve around. So I drew my 2-inch circle, but now we need something to revolve it around. So under the Create tab in the top left, where all our tools are, it's hidden, but I'm going to find the point tool under the Create section in the top left, and I'm just going to drop a point kind of over to the right of my circle. Now, this location is not set. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that it's 5 inches away from here. So the way that we get that distance is we're going to dimension. We're going to click on the dimension tool in the top left, and then we're going to click on the point we just dropped, and then we're going to click on the center point of the circle we created earlier. And you'll see that gives us a distance between these 2 points. And we want the distance between these 2 points to be 5 inches. Okay? So now we have a 2-inch diameter circle that's 5 inches away from a central point right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to pattern it around this central point 5 times. So it's almost going to look like lug nuts on a car. So I'm going to go to Create Circular Pattern. My object is going to be my circle that I created first, and then my center point. You can't just automatically select this, because right now you'll see I'm telling the computer that I'm still selecting the objects under this dialog that just popped up. So now I'm going to tell Autodesk or Fusion that I'm going to select my center point by clicking on Select next to my center point tool, and then I'm going to click on that point that we dimensioned. And you'll see these 2 things popped up right now. Right here in the center of the screen, there's a quantity number. Yours might be in a different location. It's kind of hard to find. But you can also just look in the dialog box that popped up on the right. Under quantity, we want 5 of them. Okay, so you can see the preview actually. We've taken this 2-inch diameter circle and we patterned it 5 times around that central point. And then all we have to do is press OK. And there is our pattern. And these circles don't need to be dimensioned because they already share the same diameter as our original geometry, and they are the same distance away because that's already set by our original geometry. So that's it for this. So I'm going to press finish sketch. I'm going to save, and I'm going to call this circular pattern. All right, circular pattern down. So you can see, rather than, if I go back to Fusion, rather than drawing out 5 circles and then dimensioning each of them to be 5 inches away from the center point, um, I am I was able to just pattern it, and then the geometry was already there for me, so I didn't have to do that. Okay, our next one, rectangular pattern. So we're going to pattern a 2 inch by 2 inch square 5 times on the X axis and 3 times on the Y. Now, if you end up drawing a plane that isn't on X or Y, it doesn't really matter. By X, I just mean horizontal, and by Y, I just mean vertical. That's good enough for our purposes for right now. So I'm going to make a new design. You can do file, new design. You can also click the plus button on the top right, kind of like just making a new tab in Chrome. And then I'm just going to close out my old one. So we start like we always do. Create a new sketch in the top left, and then I'm going to pick any one of these planes. I'm just going to pick the XY plane just because I said X and Y. So that's going to be the red and the green planes, or the red and the green axes where they intersect. That's the plane I'm going to select. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is we want to pattern a 2 inch by 2 inch square. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a 2 inch square. So on the top left, I'm going to click on my rectangle tool, and then starting at my origin, I'm going to click once and let go. Remember, you do not need to click and drag. Click once and let go. If you want to set the dimensions as you draw instead of place the square and then the dimensions, you can just type in 2 and then press tab and then 2 again and then press enter, and that'll give you a pre-dimensioned 2 inch by 2 inch square. Okay, so now for rectangular pattern is different. You don't need a central point to revolve around or anything like that, but you do need different directions, and I'll show you how we're going to establish that. So in the top left, under the Create tab, I'm going to go Create, and then Rectangular Pattern inside the dropdown. And then again, we have our objects. This is going to be our square, and then our directions, which is going to be the X and Y direction. So under objects, I'm going to select all 4 sides of the square that we just drew. Okay. And now you can do this either way. You can edit numbers inside the rectangular pattern dialog box, or you can do it visually with these arrows here. First, I'm going to do it in the dialog box. So we want it 5 times on the x-axis and 3 times on the y-axis. So for our first direction, under quantity, I'm going to do 5. And then under distance, we want it to be spaced, I don't know, let's do it like an inch apart. No, let's do like 5 inches. No, let's do 8 inches apart. Yeah, you can also click and drag these arrows, and you'll see once you set the quantity, you can also set the distance like this. Um, the distance in this case does not matter. I did not give you a distance, as long as you do it 5 times horizontally and 3 times vertically. So I can just click and drag this as long as the quantity is the same. And then under our second direction, our quantity is 3. So I can change that distance. Let's do like 8 inches that way. Yeah, that looks good. And then we press OK. And you'll see now I've got this array, or this grid of squares. So rather than drawing a bunch of 2 inch by 2 inch squares and then dimensioning each and every single one of them, I now have a grid of squares that I can use. All right. And that's it for the rectangular pattern tool. So again, circular pattern and rectangular pattern are incredibly useful tools when you get into more advanced 3D modeling. These basics are incredibly important when you start moving on to more advanced stuff, because the basics are what help you develop the really complex stuff later on. Right? It's like trying to play, it's like trying to shred on the guitar without knowing how to play scales. right? You have to learn how to play scales first, or else music won't make any sense. You can't just start shredding. I mean, you can, but you'll lack a fundamental understanding of how something works. So understanding these basics, even for those of you that are taking this course and you've already used CAD before, it's important to get a refresher on how all of this stuff works, specifically patterning and dimensioning. Dimensioning is the biggest problem that I see students run into. So I'm going to finish my sketch, and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call it rectangular pattern. Okay. And I will stop there for now and continue on later. All right. See you in the next video.